think we're doing warm-ups.
We are.
If you look at these moments, you'd see a life that feels familiar. A life filled with love, laughter, and the people who matter the most. The kind of memories we all hope to have. But, like so many South Africans, this is not how it always was. Because for some, food was never just food. It is a comfort, an escape, a way of coping. The WHO has declared obesity as a chronic illness leading to other health impacts like diabetes, heart disease, infertility, and some cancers. 50 to 53% of South Africans are living with obesity, disproportionately affecting women more than men, even affecting 1 in 5 children and adolescents.
A dessert pizza and a 2-liter Coke. And I would order that and I'd eat all of it. Because the scale I had only went up to 180. And when I got on the scale, I would get an error. In denial, I would think, oh, something wrong with the scale or the batteries, but I think deep down I knew.
Yeah.
When I literally could not sit up to get out of bed, I had to roll myself out of bed. So that was my tipping point, and that's when I realized I needed to do something.
This is the story of Stacy.
So welcome, Stacy.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your story and your journey with us. We really appreciate you've made the time to be with us.
My pleasure.
So we would like to get to understand your journey.
Okay.
So could you possibly tell us, when did you realize that you had an issue with your weight?
So I think I do know that I've known that I've had a issue with my weight for majority of my late teens into early adulthood. I don't think I fully realized how big I had gotten.
Mm-hmm.
You almost go within yourself and you become an introvert and you hide yourself from the world, and, you wear clothes that have lots of elastic in because, other things. It's the reality, and you don't really want to face the reality. But the biggest change for me there were 2 things. One was that I hadn't got my period naturally in 5 years.
Okay.
So my period had fully stopped. And secondly was when I literally could not sit up to get out of bed, I had to roll myself out of bed. And I realized I was losing my movement. I realized that if I'd carried on like this, I wouldn't be able to walk. I wouldn't be able to do anything for myself. And I was alone. I don't come from a big family. Mm-hmm. At that point, I hadn't met my husband yet. So I was like, what happens if something happens to me? Yeah. And I can't actually move. Yeah. Also, the fact that I hadn't had children at this point. And that's all I wanted to be as a child. I wanted to be a mom.
As like any other young woman, Stacy had childhood dreams. Dreams to have a family, to be accepted by society, to be accepted by her mother. For 5 years, she didn't have a natural period. And for Stacy, this meant she couldn't have children, at least the natural way.
I think I was about 25 years old when the realization of this is a massive issue dawned on me. When I first realized I had a weight problem was not actually my realization, but it was my mother's realization. And I came from a home of very disordered eating. My grandmother brought my mom up in a home with disordered eating. My mom had an issue with eating, but on the other side, my mom, I don't know if you guys remember Thins. It was like a liquid.
Yes, it came in a little brown bottle that you cracked.
Exactly.
Yes.
My mom wouldn't eat, she would just drink that.
Oh.
And so she was very aware and had a lot of anxiety around her weight, and therefore that onto me.
So she was on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
Not eating at all.
Exactly. And I remember her saying to me, you won't get a job if you're overweight. People won't hire you because they'll think that you're lazy. And she would say, I know what it's like to be overweight because I used to weigh 80 kilos. And I'd be like,
yes,
isn't that normal? So at 11 years old, she signed me up for Weight Watchers. And I was in a room, I remember, with a whole lot of like old tunnies in fishhook. And we all had to stand on the scale and be told that our weight was not good. And that was when I first started realizing like worth plus weight. And your worth kind of equaled your weight, or your weight equaled your worth.
Okay.
But here I hadn't had my period in 5 years. It doesn't take more than 2 brain cells to realize that my body was not working the way that it should. So that was my tipping point. And that's when I realized I needed to do something.
Obesity is a whole body condition in women's health. We can see the effects of this in different organ systems. Usually as gynecologists, it will present to us as irregular bleeding, heavy bleeding, PCOS, and even sometimes infertility. During pregnancy, women living with obesity may be classified as high-risk pregnancies. They are at risk of developing hypertension, preeclampsia and eclampsia, and gestational diabetes. From a clinical perspective, monitoring an obese patient in pregnancy can present challenges. Ultrasound and adipose tissue or fat tissue don't like one another. Thus, your ultrasounds may be difficult to the person who is doing them. They may be difficult to interpret as well, and sometimes they may not be that accurate. During labor, it becomes difficult to monitor the baby because, again, we use ultrasounds to detect the fetal heart rate. So making your labor monitoring also a little bit more tricky. In the event of surgeries, like a cesarean or any other gynecological surgery, there are high-risk situations like intubation and the healing process thereafter. There's risks of wound sepsis and also developing blood clots. And all of these things need to be managed appropriately. At the heart of this, we are not here to judge, but we are trying to reflect on these risk factors to make you aware so that we can work in partnership during your gynecological or your antenatal and postnatal recovery periods.
And what is this doing to you emotionally? I mean, you are growing up, there's already a difficult relationship with, as you are realizing yourself in your teenage years, self-image is quite important. I mean, I have a 13-year-old daughter.
Exactly.
We're always fighting about the amount of time she spends putting on lip gloss. It must be reapplied every 2 minutes, And now there's this thing that's been introduced to you at 11 that your weight is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, how is this
What
now?
was high school like?
Well, very introverted. In primary school, I was a prefect. I did every sport you could possibly do under the sun. I was incredibly active. But then when I realized that something was wrong with me, things then changed. I stopped doing sport because I felt too self-conscious. I didn't want people to see me. I kind of just... There was a situation so my mom was married to my stepfather, and it was my brother, my stepsister, my stepfather, and my mom that was in the household. And I used to cook for the entire family. That was like my role from a very young age. But what would happen is everyone would come to the kitchen and they would take their plates and go to their respective rooms. And then I would sit at the table and eat. And I felt incredibly lonely because I had already, kind of isolated myself from everybody else. And now I was finding a lot of comfort in food. And so I started getting bigger and bigger because that's where I found my company and my comfort. And then also because of almost threat of not being worthy because I was bigger.
Okay.
I then developed bulimia. So it was more binge eating first, and that went on for a while, and then purging as well. And it got to a really, really bad point that I remember eating an apple, and my friends were at my house, and I ate this apple, and I couldn't wait for people to go away. It was my brother's friends, in fact. I couldn't wait for them to go away so I could go into the bathroom. And that's when I kind of went to my mom and I said,
this is happening.
I have a problem. And then I was sent to rehabs. I went to Crescent Clinic and Kenilworth Clinic. Kenilworth Clinic twice. And I was able to get over the purging part of it, but never really over the binge eating part of it. And so the binge eating slowed down for a while, but then in early adulthood, when now I lived by myself and no one was watching what I was doing, I earned my own money. I didn't have to,
explain and count.
Exactly.
And account for things.
Then my binging got really, really bad. And I remember at that point, you didn't have Uber Eats, but Debonair's delivered. And I remembered ordering a triple-decker pizza.
Stuffed crust with cheese.
Exactly.
Cream cheese in between
Exactly.
each layer.
You could add additional sausage in the crust.
Yeah.
Then you would get these little, they're almost like savory tarts. You'd get a ham and cheese one, and then a dessert pizza. And a 2-liter Coke. And I would order that and I'd eat all of it. But during that time that I would eat it, I was almost blacking out. I didn't realize that I was doing that. And then the next morning I would feel so terrible about myself. And how could you do that? And you have no self control and you're a terrible person and everything like that. And that would cause me to binge again.
Binging and purging forms part of a serious mental health illness or eating disorder known as bulimia. Binging is the excessive intake of food. Sometimes this feels like it's completely out of your control, followed by purging. Purging is your way of getting rid of that excessive intake, and sometimes this can be by vomiting or the misuse or abuse of laxatives or diuretics as a way to shed that excessive intake.
So that's when I really ballooned.
At some point you were living on your own,
Yeah.
and you were going through the binging, not so much purging, but the binge eating, and I suppose the highs and lows that came with that. And then at some point you mentioned that you were now worried about your health and your mobility, and I suppose also your independence.
Absolutely, yeah.
What was your weight at that point? And would you say that was your turning point, or did things progress from there, or what exactly happened?
So I actually don't know what my weight was at that point because the scale I had only went up to 180. And when I got on the scale, I would get an error. In denial, I would think, oh, something wrong with the scale or the batteries, but I think deep down,
You knew.
I knew.
Yeah.
The only time I actually found out what my weight was pre-surgery when I started everything. The process, yeah.
So you mentioned Heidelberg Bariatric program.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us what that is for those of us who don't know?
So the Tygerberg Bariatric program is actually it's a phenomenal program, and it's obviously at a government hospital, but as far as I understand, it is funded by or partially funded by an American company.
Okay.
And what they do is you go in, and it's definitely not private. You go at 5:00 in the morning and you sit and you wait in a line, and you see everybody there that is clearly in need of assistance. And you have, when it's your turn, you have a discussion with the surgeon or one of the surgeons.
Did you need like a referral letter from a
Yes.
GP, or do you like Google them? Do you call them up? Do you email them? Like, how do you get into the program?
So you need a referral letter.
Okay.
I got one from my GP. I didn't hear about it from my GP. I heard about it from a Facebook group,
Okay.
a bariatric surgery Facebook group.
Okay.
And I got the letter. I emailed them, and I heard back from them. It was over a month.
Okay.
I heard back from them, and then I got an appointment, I think about 2 months later.
Okay. So is this like 3 months in now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once I had the appointment, that's when the real work started.
Okay.
So the appointment was I think it was in June, end of June or early July.
Mm-hmm.
And my op was then in October.
Okay.
In October. So there was
about 3 months.
Yeah, and there's lots that you have to do before you get approved for the op. First, you speak to the surgeon, the dietitian. You also have to have multiple sessions with the dietitian.
Being a dietitian, I would like to say it's very important. We deal with more than just the food on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
It really starts by getting a very good background of how this all started. How did you become obese? How did you pick up the weight? And before we have a clearer picture of that, we really can't actually assist patients with changing any type of habits to try and sustain it long term.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to think of your dietitian as a partner long term. And yes, we have the knowledge of healthy foods. I think most people know what healthy eating is.
Mm-hmm.
It's how do we put it into practice? How do we adjust it to individualize it to your specific situation, your religion, your likes, your dislikes, and definitely taking into consideration any metabolic diseases that you have, because then there's more specific things that we would look and change in the diet.
You've got to see a psychologist either privately or through the hospital. You have to see an endocrinologist. You have to have a scope, a gastroscopy to check everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think a whole lot of bloods for liver function and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that you have to go through. I did a lot of it privately, which sped up my process.
Okay.
And then once I'd done it all privately, the surgeon said that she thinks I would be a great candidate for a Roux-en-Y rather than sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my date.
So in terms of the surgical options, you've got the minimally invasive option, which is the intragastric balloon, which is the easiest and most commonly used. And then you've got the actual surgical options, of which Stacy mentioned Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. That's just but one option. And then you've also got a sleeve gastrectomy as well. We obviously have different criteria that we use to decide, who gets what type of bariatric procedure.
Obviously, most people, by the time you get to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm even willing to go for surgery, you had tried other things. Had you tried other ways before of trying to lose weight? I know at some point you tried to maintain, and you ended up becoming bulimic by not keeping the food in you.
I had tried everything from age 11. I had been on every single diet under the sun. I'd even been on injections, but I think it was HCG, injections.
Was that for your menstruation, or was that specifically for weight loss?
Apparently for weight loss.
Okay.
I had done keto. I had done low carb. I'd done no sugar. I'd done this and that where you cut out specific food groups, or it was just, I had done everything, and I just seemed to get bigger and bigger because none of it was sustainable. And something that I've learned is that you cannot cut out any food group.
Yeah.
I just got bigger and bigger, and I was definitely like, if there was a picture in the dictionary next to yo-yo dieter, it would be me. And I believed so strongly in all of them, and I went in them 100%, and I tried to exercise. But when you are that overweight,
hurts.
Exercising is, I
Not
mean,
Almost
easiest,
physically
yeah.
impossible. I'm sure your joints were sore. You must have been short of breath as well.
I remember how swollen my feet always were, that I couldn't tie my shoelaces. Partially because I couldn't reach very well, but also because it was just so swollen. So quality of life was just not good. And before you have the operation, they put you on a liquid diet.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is apparently obviously to lose a bit of weight, but also to shrink your liver, because they have to move that out of the way. And I did 2 weeks of that. I also used to smoke cigarettes, before that. And they said to me, we will do a blood test. And if we find that there's nicotine, you're out of the program. And so that was the first thing that I just stopped. And then I did that liquid diet and lost 12 Ks in 2 weeks. And it was like...
What did that feel like? Was it hopeful? Was it scary?
Well, I didn't think it could be done. But it taught me how strong my mind was.
Okay.
It was like my first time that I was actually like, I can do this. There is hope for me. I am able to do this. And so I did my liquid diet, lost the 12. And then the day of my surgery was when I was 197 Ks. So that was...
This was after you had lost 12 kgs, you came down to 197. I want to ask Stacey, who walked this journey with you? We've heard you speak about your grandmother and your mother, their relationship with their weight and their food issues. Who, if anybody, was your village during this time?
Because I had isolated myself so much from my family, because at that point, and let me just start by saying, I fully believe that my mom did the best that she could at the time with what she knew and where she was in her life. But she was very toxic to me in regards to food and relationships with food. And we have since dealt with that. But her and I separated for a large part of my 20s. But after my op is actually when I went to go stay with my mom to heal. And that's kind of when I started feeling like a little bit of acceptance there. But I did it by myself. Yeah, I did it by myself. So
hectic.
Takes a lot of willpower and strength.
Yeah,
Well done.
I did, yeah.
And then what were your hopes for the op? And did you have any fears? Because I'm sure you sat in front of a surgeon and we'll have someone to talk to us about the surgery.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they must have said to you, look, this is what we can offer you. With every surgery, there are risks and benefits. So you as the client sitting in front of them, what were your hopes for the surgery and what were your fears around it? Because I'm sure you didn't go into it blindly.
You know, at that point in my life I felt so trapped within my body that, I don't mean to sound dark, but I was just like, if it's my time, it's my time here. I'd rather give it a go. So I didn't have too many fears going into it. I had a 95% hopes. And I knew, because I'd done so much research, that I knew it wasn't this magic spell that they were going to put on me and I was going to wake up and that was that. I knew it was a tool and I knew I had to do the work to get, my tool to work. And I also knew that not using my tool would result in maybe I lost weight within the first year. But if I didn't continue to use my tool, I would pick it back up. So I understood that. But I remember waking up from my operation and I couldn't open my eyes, but I remember the anaesthetist talking to me and just thinking like, okay,
you made it.
It's done. I'm here. So, no, don't do that. And then...
I'm just like your resilience. I hate that word because I feel like it gets used to
perpetuate abuse.
To condone abuse, right? You're so resilient, you put up with this and you took it and you made it through. But listening to your story really is moving me because it's weight for you.
Yeah.
It's something else for someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. But I remember them also saying to me, like, okay, if you need to go to the bathroom, let us know. We'll bring you a pan. And I was like, no, I'm going to get up. I'm going to get up. And it wasn't, because we're in Tygerberg, it wasn't like I was in this ward with my own bathroom. It was phenomenal. I had to trek to the bathroom. And I walked. And I remember like the nurse walking behind me with a chair saying, if you need to sit down, I was like, no, like, this is it. This is my chance, and I'm going to make a success of this. And if I can actually just go back to the hospital itself and the program itself, they were phenomenal. They had a private nurse with you day and night, and they looked after you, and they were so like emotionally supportive. The dietitian would constantly check in with you and see how you're doing, even now. And it's 7-8 years later, they still check in with me. So it is a wonderful, wonderful program.
So Nisha, this is a lifestyle change, and I think Stacy has also highlighted that as well, that, it's a long-term commitment to lifestyle and to the whole change. And that's where I think people get lost about it. They think that bariatric surgery is going to be a quick fix, which it's not. So it's a lifestyle change. You need support from your family. You need support from the medical practitioners as well that are involved.
Surgery wasn't the end of Stacy's story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. For the first time in years, the constant noise around food began to quiet down. There was space to think, to breathe, and to experience life differently.
So after your surgery, what were the next few weeks like at home, where now you have to now work on or recover from the surgery and continue living and trying to lose the weight going forward?
Well, a reality check. I always say that the hardest part of my recovery was the mental aspect of it, because having the surgery doesn't take away all the mental stuff that caused you to get to where you were. And I always use 197 kgs as my weight, because before that I didn't know it. But I didn't just purely eat myself to 197 kgs for there were issues there. And now I could no longer eat my feelings, and I couldn't eat my anxiety. I didn't even know what anxiety was before. But I used to have 30 mils of liquids. So you go onto different phases. So you do your liquid, and then you do your puree, and you do more of like a chunky puree, and you work your way like that. But my first few weeks were really tough, because every single thing I ate, I would throw up. And it was only afterwards that we found out that I had a tiny little ulcer in my new pouch. And that was what was causing me to throw up. So I lost a mass amount of weight in that first time, but mentally it was
Draining.
Very draining. Because I was hardly getting anything in, and also I was living just in the bathroom throwing up. So that was tough. But once we went on meds for the ulcer, I was okay.
Can imagine your fears as well, like, you're now trying something different, and the scares of the previous bulimia, like what is going on now.
Exactly. So it was definitely a very triggering time for me, but it was also a time that I invested a lot of my energy into therapy, and I continued with my therapist. For almost 5 years afterwards, trying to just change my own narrative, trying to unlearn the things that I had learned, and just almost repaving the path for myself and for my kids, so that I don't pass that on. So a lot of work went into that. I was saying to my husband the other day, because he was like, "Yeah, you're so confident now," and I was like, "Yeah, I am. But what makes you say that?" And he's like, "Have you seen the outfits you wear to gym?"
The people must know.
So I was like, "Yeah,
I've earned it."
And I feel good in my outfits.
Ooh,
but
great.
What I can tell you is still every day I wake up and I put on that outfit and I think like, oh, my arms look big, or oh, my tummy looks big, or it's still, I have to make a conscious decision every day to be like, no, we're going to stop now. You look great. You put in a lot of work. You're healthy, and we're going to move on. And I do that. And even if I have to fake it, like I always say, like, fake it till I make it. Even if I have to fake it, I do. And then I record a lot of my workouts. And the reason I record my workouts is when I'm an outsider looking at myself, I'm like, damn, girl, I'm like, yeah, I do look good. You know? So, like, I kind of have to...
Hype yourself
of course.
up.
Exactly.
Your own
hype
cheerleader.
Yeah, and remind myself that this is all my hard work.
It is hard work.
Yeah.
It is definitely. It's hard work.
Yeah.
And you've earned it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, again, you're touching on something that I think it's also a constant work in progress, especially for women. I'm realizing, raising a girl as well, that we have such distorted body images, and things that are normal, our relationships with our little quirks, our marks on our bodies, our acne scars, our stretch marks, all those things that most of the time you really, really have no control over,
100%.
and you have to learn to accept and
Because
make the lemonade
society,
out of it.
exactly, society tells us that we need to look a specific way. And if we don't look that specific way, which is not a realistic way to look, then we will not be accepted. And it's wrong. And we have to be the people that change that for the future generations, because it's not realistic. No one is going to look like that.
And it also brings like the notion to me that, like you said, something about your mom did the best that she did. She knew how to do at the time. And there's that saying by Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. And so now you've gone through those phases so that, like you say, we're teaching now our kids that this is what is acceptable and what is allowed, and it is okay, and it's healthy to have curves. That's how we were intended to look.
Exactly.
So kudos to that, girl moms.
Yeah.
Are you now at your goal weight?
So it's an interesting question, because I don't now base my health and my happiness off of a number on the scale anymore. I am very happy in my body. I have 2 more surgeries, or 1 more surgery planned, which is bilateral arm and thigh lift, just to remove excess skin. And then I'm done. I don't plan on losing any more weight, but I would like to continue to maintain.
And how long did it take you, or has it taken you, to get to the ideal body that you currently have?
Well, I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. I fell pregnant 1.5 years after my surgery. So I wasn't supposed to.
One of the best things that happens after losing weight.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't supposed to do that. But I then had 2 girls 2 years apart. And during that time, I put on 20 Ks. And so once I'd finished breastfeeding my youngest, I went to a dietitian and went on to OptiFast. Lost quite a bit of weight on OptiFast. I found it was really, really good, because it was what I needed in a small amount, and I could kind of just get it down, and I felt good on it. And once I had lost that weight, I was back into my calories, counting my calories, and I still count my calories. Realistically, though, I'm not doing 1,200 calories a day. That's not realistic. And then, so that's how I'm kind of maintaining it now. But it wasn't linear. It wasn't 2 years and I lost my weight. I had my babies, like I said, 1.5 years post-op, and then, or my first baby. And I only got to where I want to be, I would say, within the last 6 months.
You've also mentioned now, obviously, now your period came back and you had 2 beautiful babies.
Yeah.
So what other non-scale wins did you experience after going on this weight loss journey?
So many. One of them was, what I used to do before I'd go out anywhere was I'd Google the place and see if they had arms on the legs, because arms on the chairs, because if they did, I wouldn't go, because I'd be too scared that I wouldn't fit in the chair. or flying. I also wouldn't travel because I was scared I wouldn't fit. Buying shoes, buying clothes in a normal shop and not having to, buy XXXX. But I was also saying to my husband that I still go into a shop and I still take a bigger size, and I have to kind of remind myself that I'm smaller now. So, but also the fact that I can move my body, and I take so much pride in the fact that I can move my body and I can be active with my children, and that I'm an example to my children to live an active life. Because I know, I have to change the narrative for them. They have access to a snack drawer whenever they want. There is no food that is better than anything else. There's no hierarchy there. But it's about them making choices and about them wanting to be healthy. And we love to move our bodies. My oldest daughter asked Santa for a boxing bag for Christmas.
That's cool.
And for me, I was like, Santa's going to get that for you. And so now we have a boxing bag, and we love to do it. And
so cute.
we love to move. And so I know that I'm doing the right thing. And that for me is the biggest non-scale victory that I've had. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
The change didn't come all at once. For Stacy, it was 8 years, and it came in small decisions repeated over time. A choice to try, a choice to keep going, a choice to take back control. And somewhere along the way, something unexpected happened. Exercise stopped being punishment and became proof. Proof that she could do hard things, that she was stronger than she had ever believed, that change was possible. With the right support, the right tools, and the willingness to keep showing up, the weight began to shift, but not only in her body, but also in her mind. For the first time, it wasn't about chasing a number. It was about finding freedom.
What are you doing now on a daily basis to stay happy and healthy?
So food noise has always been a big thing for me throughout the entire journey. And about a year ago, I was introduced to a GLP-1, and I started using that, and has absolutely changed my life. Not so much in regards to losing weight, because I didn't have that much weight that I still wanted to lose, but more for anxiety, more for my relationship with food. I wasn't continuously obsessing about calories or could I eat this, should I eat this, should I eat that. It kind of just became another thing. And so I plan to stay on a GLP-1 for the rest of my life. I don't plan to come off of it. I know it's a long-term treatment for me, and I don't see any stigma around it either.
An example of a GLP-1 is Ozempic. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It's a naturally occurring hormone which is released from your gut after you have eaten. The purpose of this hormone is to give you a feeling of being full or satiety. It slows the emptying of your stomach, and it suppresses your hunger or appetite for a longer period of time.
So there's the GLP-1 that I do, and then also I exercise 6 days a week. It's become a huge part of my personality and my life now. I'm even thinking of starting a business venture around it. It's just my peace. That's my peace. Going to the gym now is my time, not as a mother, not as a wife. It's just for me, and it's to go into myself and prove to myself the things that I thought were so difficult before, that I could do them now. So that, and obviously in regards to nutrition, focusing on protein intake, that's always the first thing that I do. I still, from the day I had my bariatric surgery, eat off of a side plate. I don't think I'll ever change that. I eat off of a side plate, and I prioritize protein, veg, and then carbs. And I do obviously have sugar, but very minimal sugar because of dumping syndrome and everything that comes with bariatric surgery.
Yeah. So it's great that you're mentioning that you are also now on a GLP-1, because often maybe there's also a misconception that you either go one route and that's just your route and you stay on it, and or you go medical or surgical. So you are actually using everything that is at your disposal. So you've had surgery, you've had you are maintaining a healthy diet, you are moving your body, which is something that's quite important as well. And now you're also in a GLP-1.
Yeah. Well, obesity, I fully believe, just because I have lived through it, is a chronic condition. I know there's a lot of people who say, no, get up, stop eating so much.
It has been recognized as such by the WHO. So
so and it requires treatment, and whatever that treatment may be and whatever works for you. And that's a treatment that works for me. And I don't think that anybody who's going through this sort of situation or is in the same situation should feel stigma attached to either bariatric surgery, it's not the easy way out, or GLP-1, it's also not the easy way out, and it's expensive too.
Through every setback, every restart, every moment of doubt, she kept going. The tools helped, the support mattered, but the change came from her. For Stacy, this isn't the end of the journey. It's the life she fought to build. And for the first time, she's free.
It's just my peace. It's my peace. Going to the gym now is my time, not as a mother, not as a wife. It's just for me, and it's to go into myself and prove to myself the things that I thought were so difficult before, that I could do them now.
We like your engagement. Please ask us any questions in the comment section. And until next time, we hope. Right, girl.